Well, it is my absolute pleasure today to speak to one of the finest gentlemen I've ever met, and also a great Major League Baseball player, World Series champion with the Kansas City Royals, someone that has crossed paths with the great, the near great, and has some amazing stories and an amazing new book out. Greg Pryor, a book called The Day the Yankees Made Me Shave. And Greg, it's my absolute pleasure to chat with you today about the book. My first question is, how did you land on that name for the book?
Well, first of all, let me say what a pleasure it's been to meet you on Facebook. I never did plan on using Facebook after I retired, but I guess my constant action on Facebook got your attention, and here we are, Greg, and we're getting ready to talk baseball. I'll get right to it. I named that book. First of all, the book was like 3 years in the making because, I played, 10 seasons in the big leagues and 16 years total. And I had all these stories. And maybe 25 years after I got done playing, my youngest daughter said, "Dad, why don't you write down your stories so we'll have a record of it?" So that's how it got started. And then when I came up to about 100 stories, I had to whittle it down some. And we came up with 27 because that's how many outs there are in a baseball game. And then, obviously you have to have the first story. So I kind of called the head of the journalism department at University of Kansas. I live in Kansas now. And I told him, I gave him my list of stories. He says, "Greg, why don't you just name the book your first chapter?" I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So the first chapter is the name of the book, The Day the Yankees Made Me Shave. And that's how I named it. And the reason why I named it that is because I thought it was a funny name that people would look at and say, "I wonder why the Yankees made him shave." And secondly, it was like all the other stories in the book. It starts with the day that, because this is not a biography that I wrote. It's kind of like 27 individual stories about what strange and wonderful things happened to me when I was playing ball. And every chapter starts with that. It's not in chronological order, but the book, The Day the Yankees Made Me Shave, starts with that title because that's the first story. And do you want to hear the condensed version of the first story?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What a wonderful book, Greg. What a wonderful book.
Well, people ask me, "Why'd you put the Yankees picture on the front of it?" And I'm thinking, well, there's more Yankee fans in the world than Royals fans and White Sox fans and Rangers fans. And I even played down in Venezuela. There might be some people in Venezuela that might remember me and want my book. But in my career, which we'll get into earlier parts of it, I was getting ready to go to spring training in '76 with the Texas Rangers. I was planning on being a part of that team because I had been called up for the first time in the big leagues in '76, in June of '76. And I thought I was on the verge of being a big league ball player. And I was planning on going to spring training with the Rangers in Pompano. But I get a phone call from Dan O'Brien, the general manager of the Rangers. And he says, "Pryor, we just traded you to the Yankees." And he says, "Gabe Paul's going to be calling you up in a few minutes." And I didn't know who Gabe Paul was, the general manager of the Yankees at the time. And Paul called me up right after that, and he says, "Oh, so glad to have you here as a Yankee." And I'm thinking, Yankees? Why me? They just got done playing the Reds in the World Series the year before. They got swept 4-0. And here I get invited to go down to Pompano Beach to be in a Yankee Major League camp as an additional infielder, maybe, and to be with the manager that I was really hoping to play for, Billy Martin. It was my third spring training to be around Billy Martin, and I was kind of excited about that. But I was looking at Greg Nettles at third and Chicken Stanley at shortstop and Willie Randolph at second. I'm thinking, where am I going to play? Well, I get down there, and I was there the whole month, and it was pretty obvious early on that I wasn't in the pecking order. I wasn't near their list of guys that they were going to take north when they opened the season in '77. And it was frustrating for me because every day I'd go in and I'd see Catfish and Reggie and Thurman and Chambliss and whatever. And I'm thinking, man, how come these guys, how come I can't fit in here? So at the end of the camp, the day came where I knew it was coming, and the farm director came to me. He says, "Pryor, we're sending you to Syracuse, and I'm sorry you're not going to make the club, but we're going to send you to Syracuse. And oh, by the way, Pryor, you guys shave that mustache off before you report to the AAA team. And I'm thinking, oh, well, why do I need to shave my mustache? And they said, because AAA ball players and all the other minor leaguers in the Yankee organization can't grow mustaches. And that really, really, getting traded to the Yankees when I was 28 years old, being in my third year, going back to my third year in AAA, I had reached the end of my rope with that organization and baseball, because I said, Pryor, if you don't do something now, you're never going to get a chance to play in the big league. So I told the manager of my AAA team, Pete Ward, I said, look, when I get to Syracuse, I'm going to be your worst nightmare. And he goes, oh, Pryor, take it easy. Just have a good season. I said, have a good season. I'm not staying in Syracuse. I said, I've been in New England in the spring, and it's not fun to play in cold games every night for a month. I said, I want out of here. I want you to trade me. I tell him I'm going to. So I get up there to Syracuse. I had a mustache revolt. I get all the guys in the clubhouse, and I said, hey, how many of you guys are man enough to grow a mustache like Thurman Munson and Catfish and Reggie? Raise your hand. And they all raise their hand. And I'm thinking, great. So I got them all to sign a sheet. I took the sheet in to the manager, Pete Ward. I said, hey, Pete, every guy on this team's grown a mustache. And I said, you can tell the Yankees that I'm not going to shave. I don't care what they do. I'm going to keep growing my mustache. I don't care what happens. And he wasn't very pleased with me, but I really didn't care. So anyway, after the 3-week purgatory that they put us in, because here I was going up against George Steinbrenner face to face. Really, it was George's rule. They turned the rule over. We were in Pawtucket after a game. Pete Ward came in to talk to the team and said, okay, guys, I just got word today that you guys can grow mustaches. So here I am, still broke, going to my third year in AAA with a flimsy mustache. And I really didn't give a crap if I had a mustache. But all the guys on the team thought I was some kind of hero, because all the other guys in the Yankee minor league system could start growing mustaches now because of my mustache revolt. So that's the first chapter in the book. There's a lot more things in that first chapter I didn't include in this story, but on this time here. But it was a lot of fun writing that story out, because I think in life, which a lot of people might know that are listening to this call, sometimes you have to draw the line in the sand with your employer, or you just leave. But I didn't want to leave because I didn't want to quit. I wanted them to release me or trade me. And unfortunately, my mustache revolt did not get me traded. So I ended up playing the rest of the season there in Syracuse, and in other parts of the book, people can read about how I got out of the Yankee minor league system as a free agent and signed with the White Sox in the spring of '77, and end up playing in Comiskey Park with the White Sox for 4 more seasons after that mustache revolt in Syracuse.
Great story. So let's stay with the Yankees for a couple more questions. I've got so much else to ask, but share with me your experiences first with Billy Martin, because I know you outlined in the book several different episodes, both as a player and then as an opponent. So if you could share a little bit about Billy, that would be great.
Well, Billy Martin, ran into him for the first time in Instructional League after the '73 season. Mike Cubbage and I were in Instructional League. They brought major league teams bring prospects to work them out down in Florida after the season's over, and we got invited to the Texas Rangers Instructional League. And Billy Martin was getting ready to make a one-day visit into the camp, and we're out there turning down plays, and here comes Billy. He had these patent leather shoes on. I think they were green as I remember, and they were Volare, Volare was the name of the shoe. And the reason I remember that is I've never seen green patent leather shoes before. I come from a family of 6 kids. My dad was a school teacher my whole life, so we wore hand-me-downs. We didn't wear green patent leather shoes. And he comes out on the field with these shoes on. He starts turning double plays at second base, and I'm looking down at him scuffing these green shoes on, and I'm thinking, wow, what a man this guy is. I'm really impressed, because they had a little metal V stamped right in the back of the wooden sole or a heel on his shoe. That's why I always remember it. But he goes, you guys, you need to move your feet. You need to start moving this and doing this way. So we started trying to speed it up a little bit. I mean, we weren't ready for the big leagues. Neither Mike or I. Both made it, but we weren't ready at that time. And then he takes us to shortstop, and he goes, "Okay, you guys, I want you to throw like 10 balls from deep short over to first for me. Let me watch you. Look at your arm." Well, I played second base in college, and my arm was not ready for the big leagues at that time, and I'm throwing rainbows over there, and so's Mike, and he looks at us. He goes, "You guys, if you can't throw the ball on a line from deep short, you're never going to make it. So I don't know where you're going to get it from, but work on turning two at second base. Your feet are too slow, and your arms are not strong enough to play shortstop. Okay." So I'll be looking out for you guys. You guys can hit a little bit. I'll be looking out for you. So that was my first introduction to Billy Martin. Well, I go to spring training next spring with him. I worked on everything. I was trying to get better. I got sent out to A-ball after the 73 camp there in Pompano. In 74, I went back with Billy. He was managing the Rangers major league team, and I went back for my second camp, and he comes up to me after the camp and he goes, "Pryor," he goes, "I'm sending you back to the minor league camp, but," he says, "if I need an infielder," he says, "you're the first one I'm going to call." Right to my face. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm right next to the president of baseball, and he's going to get me to the big leagues. And I was so excited, so happy that a major league manager said I'm close, because sometimes in baseball you don't know if you're getting better or not unless somebody tells you. It's a really a tough sport to master. So I go to the minor league camp. Now I'm trying to speed this up, but it's
a great story.
This is the first time that I quit baseball. I'm going to get ready to tell you how I quit baseball. After Billy Martin tells me I'm getting ready to play in the big leagues, I'm getting ready to quit baseball in 2 days. So I go to the minor league camp, and I go to the farm director, and I had signed a split contract in the minor leagues. They give you peanuts for a AAA, and they give you pork and beans for AA back in the day, right? It was like minuscule money, $1,000 and $750. And I go to him, Hal Keller, and he goes, "Pryor, you're going to be working out with the AA team." I said, "Excuse me?" He says, "Yeah, the AAA manager has already picked his shortstop, and it's not you." So here I was getting ready to go back to Pittsfield. I've been to Pittsfield, Mass, Eastern League, frigid, snow drifts in April, right? And I'm thinking, no, Mr. Keller, I need to tell you something. Billy Martin just told me 2 days ago that I was going to be the first infielder that he called up to the big leagues if he needed an infielder, and I'll need to be in AAA so he can call me up. I didn't know any better. I was trying to look at it as a reason to stay out of Pittsfield. He goes, "No, you don't understand, Pryor." He goes, "I run this camp. I pick out what players go play where, and the AAA manager picked his shortstop. It's not you, and you're going to be going with Joe Klein to Pittsfield." And I'm thinking, how can I make this any better? So I said, "Well, sir," I said, "at least give me my $1,000 a month to play in AAA instead of the $750 in AA." He goes, "Pryor, you signed a split contract, 1,000 for AAA, which you're not going to, 750 for AA, which you're going to." And he says, "You're getting the 750. Now, is there any other questions?" I said, "No, I don't have any questions. I'm just going to let you know right now, I'm quit." He goes, "Have it your way." So I left the camp. I went home to Orlando, right up the road. I was in Plant City, Florida. So I went home. I went home for 3 days, and my ego was like blasted, right? So here I'm going from the verge of the big leagues to being out of baseball in 2 or 3 days. So my mom and my dad, they said, "Well, you gave it a good shot." They weren't that excited that I had quit. They didn't tell me to go back. I on my own, I called the AA manager, and I said, "Hey, Joe Klein," I said, "this is Greg Pryor." I said, "I think I made a big mistake." I said, "I'll come back for the 750. I said, "Do you think I can come back?" He goes, "Yeah, show up in the morning. I'll tell Hal you're going to be here." So luckily, the Rangers let me come back into the minor league camp. I went back there, and I never did ever did get to see Billy Martin until that fateful spring of '77, when he ignored me for a whole month. And he went on to win the World Series. Billy did in '77, and the Yankees did. But I could have been on that team. George Zeber was the backup infielder in '77, and but I got my licks against Billy when he managed the Yankees and he managed Oakland. I didn't get revenge on him, but I showed Billy Martin that I was a decent major league ball player, and I don't know if he ever admitted he made a mistake on me, but I wish I could have played for him, because I liked his eagerness. I liked his intensity. I don't know if I could have drank with him, but not many people could. But I give him credit. He won in Detroit. He won in Minnesota. He won in New York. He won in Oakland. So, give Billy credit for what he did. And I think he was a wonderful major league player and played in the World Series.
So your first agent was the son of the great Hank Greenberg. Can you share some memories around that? I know you had mentioned to me that you had an opportunity to meet Hank Greenberg, and I haven't heard that story, and I would love to hear it.
Well, let me get to it by telling you how I met Steve, because Steve Greenberg, my only agent, he represented me in every major league contract I ever got. But Steve and I met in college because he went to Yale and I went to Florida Southern in Lakeland, Florida. And when Yale came down to for the spring to get him to get the snowdrift off of him, we would just pace those guys because we had been working out in the sun for like 2 months, and this is the first time they've been outside almost. So we would just knock their brains out and send them back up to wherever they came from. And that's where I saw Steve for the first time. And then, fortunately for both of us, we both signed with the Washington Senators. Steve, son of Hank, as you know, was a minor league infielder with the Washington Senators. So I got to meet Steve again when he was in AAA with the Rangers, and I was in AA or single A with the Rangers. And then he retired. He did not make the big leagues. He didn't get to the big leagues, and he retired. And from like 75 on, I never heard from him. So right after I became a free agent out of the Yankee organization in the winter of '77. A phone call rings at my mom and dad's house in Orlando, and it was Steve Greenberg, and he says, "Hi, Greg, it's Steve." I said, "Steve," I said, "what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I quit baseball. I went back to law school, and I became Harvard Law School. I'm an agent now." And I'm thinking, wait a minute, does Steve know that I got drafted? He says, "Pryor," he says, "I saw you got drafted." He said, "Listen, my dad, Hank Greenberg, and Bill Veeck were close friends in their whole career. And I know the White Sox organization could really use you." He says, "I'd like to be your agent. I'd like to call Bill Veeck and Roland Heeman up and tell them that I'm your agent and negotiate a contract for you. And let me just say this, that I have language in the contract that no matter what you sign for, no matter what we get for you, it'll be guaranteed. Even if you don't make the team, you're going to get paid." Now I'm thinking, that sounds like a pretty good deal. So we signed a 1-year contract there for the White Sox. I was so happy. I got more out of the White Sox in a 1-year contract than the Yankees, Yankees had offered me a 2-year contract out of Syracuse, but I turned it down. That's in the book too. That's when George Steinbrenner called me a dumbass. It's a chapter in the book. I flew to New York. He offered me
he had to eat those words though.
That's okay. It's what's great about baseball. Nobody can ever figure it out. So I signed that 1-year contract with the White Sox, and then when I got to the big leagues with the White Sox in '78, I go to LA to play the Angels, Anaheim, and Steve called me and he goes, "Pryor, I'm picking you up tomorrow. We're going to the Beverly Hills Tennis Club. You're going to be watching my dad, Hank, play Jimmy Connors on center court at the Beverly Hills Tennis Club." And they said, "There'll be nobody else around except you and me, my dad, and Jimmy." And I'm thinking, wow, I get to meet Hank Greenberg and Jimmy Connors in the same time. So I go there to have lunch, and Steve says, "Greg, order anything you want." And here comes Hank. He was looking really, really good. He was ready to play Jimmy. Here comes Jimmy Connors, and the handicap for them to play each other was that Jimmy had to play right-handed. And so Hank was normally a right-handed tennis player. So Jimmy and Hank both played right-handed, and that was the match. So because it wasn't fair to expect Hank to play Jimmy when Jimmy could play left-handed. So I don't remember really who won, but I do remember this. The banner back and forth was priceless. I wish I had a videotape of those two playing, because two major forces in their sports, both of them. And here I am with my agent in my first year in the big leagues, getting to watch these guys, and it was a wonderful time. And I can see why Steve been successful in his career, because his dad, Hank Greenberg, went through a lot of grief in his career, being Jewish, and being pounded on from the stands of people yelling at him. And I'm so happy that I can say that Steve Greenberg was my agent, and he wrote the preface to my book, and I'm really proud to know both of them.
Great. Got to talk about that great Royals team, the great run, teammates of yours. But first, we've got to touch on the Pine Tar game. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about that game and your role in that, because I know there's an interesting story around that. So if you would share.
Well, it was always a fun for me to go back in the Yankee Stadium and play. My first trip back there, I've got my rookie card here. That's my rookie card from '78. That's Yankee Stadium in the background, and that's me with my mustache and our old time uniforms.
That looks like Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, no, that's Yankee Stadium in the background. Yeah, that's where they took all the pictures back in the day in New York.
Yeah.
That's where all the photographers were.
What'd you think of those uniforms back then, Greg?
I would have played in a dress, man. I didn't care. It was a diversion. A lot of times you put on a baseball uniform every day for 7 straight months. It becomes almost like a prison outfit if you're not going to it very well, because baseball is such a mentally demanding game. But no, I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty cool. I like that old lettering. I'm kind of an old school guy anyway. I like that old lettering on our uniforms. But that day we went back in the Yankee Stadium in '83 to play them. Gaylord Perry was on the Royals then. Rocky Calavito was there. Dick Hauser was our manager, and I wasn't in the lineup. And I was just watching the game go by, and all of a sudden we get to the 8th inning, and it's a 1-run game. And both of our catchers were in the game. Don Slott and John Wathan were both in the game. And in the bullpen, they always needed 2 catchers, one to catch a right-handed pitcher and one to catch a left-handed pitcher, or 2 righties, whatever. So the only time in my life I was ever asked to go to the bullpen, Little League, Colt League, college, pro, this is the only time I ever got to the bullpen. Dick Hauser walks down to me on the bench and he goes, "Pryor," he said, "I need you to go warm up Don Hood, a left-hander out there, because if we tie the game up in the 9th, I might need him." And I'm thinking, I don't have a catcher's glove. No, but they had a catch. They handed me the catcher's glove. So here I am walking across left field in Yankee Stadium, right between innings, the top of the 8th or bottom of the 8th, whatever it was. And I'm thinking, wow, this is different. And I go out there where all the monuments are, and I'm out there, and they gave me a mask. They should have given me an iron bodysuit. That's what catchers really ought to be wearing, because I wasn't. I didn't want to be a catcher. I didn't want to get beat up every night. But I get out there with a mask and a glove, and I'm catching Don Hood, and he, these pitchers that get ready to come in major league games, they turn into half the animal that they are, and he was like acting like he was facing the best pitcher in the world. None of his balls were going straight. They were hitting in the dirt. They were bouncing off of me. It was hard for me to catch them because I have hands made for a violin, not a catcher's mask. And watching the top of the 9th, and I'm getting beat up because Don Hood's heating up because we got a man on base, and George hits the ball into the right field stands, and we all stopped, and we're all happy because we took a 1-run lead. And I'm the happiest because I think I might be done warming up Don Hood. But all of a sudden, out of the Yankee dugout, here comes Billy Martin running out there with Greg Nettles, and they grab the bat, and everybody knows that the umpires looked at the bat. They laid the bat down in front of home plate, and they made a decision that George had pine tar too far from the end of the bat. I think it's 18 inches. That you can only have it 18 inches from either the knob or the end. I don't know the rule. I didn't care about the rule. But when they called George out, that meant the game was over because that was the 3rd out. So everybody knows when George was coming out of that dugout like a wild man wanting to beat up he did run into the umpire. He got thrown out of the game and Rocky Calavita got thrown out, and Gaylord Perry got thrown out of the game because they grabbed the bat and were running into our clubhouse with the bat, so that there was be no proof that George used a bat with too much pine tar, and the police got a hold of Gaylord and the Rocky in the clubhouse, got to bat, and we all walked. We're walking by in the left field, and there's videotape of me walking into the dugout in Yankee Stadium with my catcher's glove, and George is right in front of me, and everybody was like depressed because we're thinking, wait a minute, pine tar didn't help that ball go over the fence. How can they rule like that? So we're all wondering what the heck's going on, and I go in the clubhouse and I locker next to George. My number was number 4 and his was 5, and we were right next to each other. And I looked over at his locker, and there was like 50 reporters congregated around our lockers, and I knew I couldn't get close to my locker, so I went over and sat next to Hal McRae's locker for at least a good 30 minutes, and finally George was by himself, and I went over there, and I'm really good friends with him, and I was trying to make light of it somehow. I didn't know what to do, and he had his head down, and I had this great idea. I said, "Hey," I said, "what's wrong with you?" He goes, "What do you mean, what's wrong with me?" He said, "I just lost a home run. We lost the game. That's what's wrong with me." I said, "Well, look at the bright spot." He goes, "What bright spot?" I said, "There's some pine tar company that's going to come to you with a $150,000 contract to endorse their pine tar. You're going to make so much money out of this deal." He opened his eyes up. He started smiling. He started looking at me. He started smiling. He goes, "Where are we going to go eat? That's a great idea." So I got him out of his bad mood right away. So we went out to eat somewhere anyway. But as everybody knows, Lee McPhail turned over the decision that the pine tar home run would count, which put us up by 1 run with still 2 outs in the top of the 9th. So the league ruled that we had to fly back in there on an off day to finish that last out of the top of the 9th, and then we had to get the Yankees out in the bottom of the 9th to finish the game. And I was like, I know I'm going to be playing third base because George got thrown out for bumping the umpire. So here I go from Kansas City to Newark. We flew into Newark. We get off there, get on the bus. We take a bus to Bronx. We dress out. I'm dressing out to go out in an almost empty Yankee Stadium for 4 outs. We're still up to bat. Hal McRae's the next hitter after George, and I'm going to go out to third base to finish the bottom of the 9th, the Yankee Stadium. And I hate to say that I was nervous, but I was really, really nervous because I really didn't like the Yankee Stadium infield that much. And I was thinking, what if I get 3 bad hops in a row here? I was actually, I was trying to stay calm, but I was thinking, Pryor, you better get ready because you never know. Because, baseball's never over till it's over, as Yogi used to say. And luckily, Dan Quisenberry got the Yankees out in the 9th, 3 up, 3 down. We go back in, showered, get on the bus, go back to Newark, get on our chartered flight to Baltimore from Newark. And George is on the plane. And not many people know this, but when we get on the plane, I didn't know George never even came to the game. He stayed in Newark and went out to eat dinner with a collector who bought his pine tar bat during the pine tar game, or the finish of the pine tar game. George sold his pine tar bat for like what he said, and he had the stack of money on the plane. It was like $150,000, And I'm thinking, and he was flipping to hit me in the head with it, and he was laughing. It was so funny. And I said, you should have got more money than that. And I'll let George tell the end of that story because all it is about hearsay. But that event was one of the most incredible things that happened to me. Not only was I in the bullpen for the first time in my career, the only time, it was during the pine tar game, and I actually got in the pine tar game. And I didn't bring this prop to show you on here, but when we got back to Kansas City, I was in a commercial with George because Emory Air Freight flew the bat back from New York to Kansas City. George's pine tar bat. They flew it back, and Emory called George and said, "We'd like to do a commercial with us delivering your pine tar bat back to Royal Stadium." It was called Royal Stadium at the time. So they said, we need you to get 3 ball players as stand-ins for the commercial. And George asked me to be in the commercial. And I was thinking, well, how much am I going to get? He goes, "You get $500 for just standing." I said, "I'll do it." And it was Buddy Black and George Brett, and I think Pat Sheridan was the third guy. members of the Royals, and we showed up for the commercial, and they had to lease the stadium. And the guy that did the commercial for Emory Air Freight was Bob Giraldi, who did the Michael Jackson video "Beat It." I think he was the director, as I heard. So we go out there. I'm all dressed up in my uniform, and I'm acting like a movie star. And they finally shut the commercial, and I said, George, I said, are we going to be in the commercial? He goes, I don't know. I don't care. I got my 10 grand. I don't care. I got my 10 grand for like 10 minutes or whatever he got. I don't know what he got. So anyway, they played that commercial during the World Series that year. And even though I didn't make the final cut, I still got my check for $500. And that's kind of like the end of the Pine Tar story.
All right. Well, there is a tremendous amount more. So I think, Greg, we're going to have to do a series of these. I want to touch on I didn't get to even half of what I had to ask. So
hey,
no. These are great stories. So I want to remind everyone, the name of the book is The Day the Yankees Made Me Shave. And Greg has a special offer, which is with the purchase of the book. He will also include a baseball card, a signed baseball card, and a signed Kansas City Royals picture.
Yeah. On the back, it's got 21 tips on how to be a better player.
Yeah, so pick up the book. There's great stories. We're going to do a series of these, a lot more to cover, and we want to talk more about the supplement line. So, Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to chatting with you again very soon, and I know our listeners will as well. So,
thank you. It's great to meet you. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
All right. Thanks.